I turned into the gravel driveway of my lake house just after noon on Friday, already savoring the quiet that waited for me. 3 whole days of still water, wide skies, and not a single work email demanding my attention. I'd been counting down to this escape ever since I finalized the Henderson deal, the one that had swallowed 6 relentless months of my life. Being a commercial real estate broker in Austin came with its perks, but lately the stress had felt suffocating. The lake house, tucked away in the hill country 2 hours from the city, was meant to be my refuge. The second I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The air was thick with dust, heavy enough to sting my throat. The living room I had carefully curated, cream sofas, vintage lakeside photographs, polished hardwood floors, had vanished. In its place were exposed beams, ripped drywall, and construction equipment scattered across debris. My shoes crunched against broken plaster as my chest tightened. The kitchen was even worse. The custom cabinets I had saved for years to afford were gone, leaving raw gaps in the walls. The marble countertops I'd installed the previous spring lay shattered across the floor, and the vintage farmhouse sink I'd driven 4 hours to San Antonio to track down had disappeared completely. Instead, a concrete mixer stood in the center of the room beside stacks of unopened cabinetry. I stood frozen, trying to make sense of it. This was my house. I had bought it 5 years earlier with my own savings. I had made every mortgage payment. I had spent countless weekends driving out here to paint, refinish the dock, and plant flowers along the stone path to the lake. My phone was already in my hand when I heard footsteps on the porch. "Bella, sweetie, you're here early." My mother walked in, smiling brightly, until she saw my face. She was dressed in white linen pants and a coral blouse, her silver hair pulled back in its usual tidy bun. My father followed behind her, looking uneasy in cargo shorts and a fishing vest. "What happened to my house?" I asked. My voice came out barely above a whisper. Mom waved a hand casually, stepping around a pile of broken tiles. "Don't worry about the mess. The contractor promised everything will be cleaned up by next month. It's going to be beautiful when it's finished." "Finished?" I repeated. "Who authorized this?" She blinked, genuinely puzzled. "We did, honey, your father and I. We've been planning the renovation for months." I frantically scrolled through my text messages. There were dozens from her, updates about my nephew's baseball games, Sunday dinner reminders, wedding plans, nothing about demolishing my house. "There's nothing here about a renovation," I said, holding up my phone. My father cleared his throat. "Your mother mentioned it at dinner 3 weeks ago. You said it sounded fine." I said what sounded fine? "The remodeling," Mom said. "We told you we wanted to update the kitchen and open up the living room. You were on your phone, but you nodded and said it sounded nice." The memory surfaced faintly: Sunday dinner, exhaustion from negotiations, answering urgent emails while my mother talked in the background. I probably nodded without listening. "Even if I did, which I don't remember, this is my house," I said carefully. "You can't hire contractors and tear it apart without my explicit permission. It isn't your property." Something in my mother's expression cooled. "Bella, don't be dramatic. We're doing this for the family. Your brother and Victoria will need more space soon, and this place sits empty most of the time. It makes sense to make it functional for when they visit." "For when they visit?" I repeated. "For when they move in," she corrected gently. "We've been discussing it for months. Jacob's firm is expanding, and he wants to open a satellite office out here. The lake house is perfect, plenty of room for an office, and Victoria loves the water, and they're trying for a baby." The room seemed to tilt. "Move in? I bought this house. I own it." "Well, technically, we helped with the down payment," my father said quietly. "You gave me $15,000 as a birthday gift," I reminded him. "The rest came from my savings, and I've paid the mortgage every month since." My mother sighed. "No one is taking anything from you. We're just making it better for everyone. You're always busy. You barely come out twice a month. Jacob and Victoria will actually live here. They'll take care of it." "Get out," I said softly. "Bella, get out of my house, now." They left, my father guiding my protesting mother toward their car. I stood in the doorway and watched them drive off, gravel crunching under their tires. As soon as they disappeared down the road, I called the only person I knew would truly understand. "Bella?" Jessica answered. "Weren't you going off-grid this weekend?" "Jess, I need help," I said, my voice breaking. "They destroyed it. They destroyed my house." 20 minutes later, after I explained everything, there was a stunned silence on the line. Your parents hired contractors to demolish your kitchen and living room without permission because they plan to give your house to your brother? Apparently it's been discussed for months, I said bitterly, and I somehow missed all of it. That's not legal. They can't just take over your property. I know, I just can't believe they did. Jessica exhaled sharply. They've always treated Jacob like the golden child, but this is insane. What are you going to do? I looked around at the wreckage, years of work and savings reduced to rubble for my brother's convenience. Something solidified inside me. I'm calling my attorney, I said, and then I'm making sure this never happens again. What about the renovation? Can I hold them liable for the costs? Absolutely, Gregory replied. If they hired contractors without your permission, they are responsible for both the unauthorized work and the cost of restoring your home to its previous condition. Do you have documentation of what the house looked like before? I thought of the dozens of photos I'd taken over the years, every finished room, every upgrade, every carefully chosen detail. Yes, I have everything. Good, send it all to me. I'll prepare a demand letter, and if they refuse to pay, he paused, we take them to court. But Bella, I need to ask, are you ready for that? Suing your family will create a permanent rift. I looked around at the exposed beams, the gutted walls, the construction equipment littering my living room. I thought about my mother dismissing my ownership as if it were a technicality, about Jacob assuming he could simply move in. Yes, I said steadily, I'm ready. That afternoon, I gathered every record I had, before and after photos of each improvement, receipts for appliances, furniture, and custom cabinetry, mortgage statements, property tax records, screenshots of my mother's texts, none mentioning any renovation, even the recording I'd started when Jacob and Victoria arrived, capturing their casual assumption that the house would soon be theirs. I organized everything into labeled folders and sent it to Gregory. Then I opened the family group chat. I need to make something very clear, I typed. The lake house is my property. I purchased it with my own money. I pay the mortgage. I am the sole owner on the deed. No one had my permission to hire contractors or begin renovations. Effective immediately, all work must stop. All family members must vacate the property. My attorney will be sending formal notice. Any further trespassing or damage will result in legal action. My thumb hovered over the screen. This was the line. Once crossed, there would be no going back. I hit send. The replies came instantly. My mother wrote a long message about how hurt she was that I would threaten the family with lawyers. My father said I was overreacting. Jacob accused me of sabotaging his future out of jealousy. I muted the chat and set my phone down. Sunday morning, I met Jessica for coffee at a small cafe in town. She wrapped me in a tight hug. You look awful, she said bluntly, the kind of honesty I depended on from her. I feel awful. We sat with our drinks, and I updated her on everything. I can't believe Jacob showed up like he had a right to be there, she said. The entitlement is unreal. That's the worst part, I replied. He truly doesn't think he did anything wrong. None of them do. What did Gregory say? He's sending formal notices tomorrow. He thinks once they see official legal documents, they might back down. Do you think they will? I stared into my coffee. The family I thought I had would never have done this in the first place. My phone buzzed. Another message in the group chat, this time from my Aunt Linda. I cannot believe you would treat your parents this way after everything they have done for you. I showed Jessica. Let me guess, she said. She heard your mom's version. Exactly. More notifications followed, cousins, family friends. Apparently my mother had already started telling her story. You know what you need to do? Jessica said. Stick to the facts. When people ask, and they will, you tell them exactly what happened. No drama, just the truth. She was right. I had spent years trying to keep the peace, believing silence was maturity. All it had done was make it easier for them to cross my boundaries. Facts only, I said. I can do that. Monday morning, Gregory emailed to confirm that cease and desist letters had been sent by certified mail and email to my parents, Jacob, Victoria, and the contracting company. The language was clear. I was the sole owner. All work must stop immediately. The demand letter required payment for the damage within 15 days. I was finishing breakfast at the hotel when my phone rang. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. She called again, then my father, then Jacob. I ignored them until after I'd finished my coffee. My mother's voicemail was sharp with anger. Bella, what have you done? We received a legal threat claiming we trespassed on your property. This is absurd. Call this off before you embarrass the family. My father sounded weary. Honey, lawyers aren't the answer. Please call your mother so we can resolve this privately. Jacob was livid. You sent us a cease and desist? Victoria is in tears. Mom is hysterical. All because you can't share a house you barely use. Grow up. I deleted the voicemails and opened my laptop. If they wouldn't fix this voluntarily, I would fix it properly. By Tuesday afternoon, I had 3 restoration estimates. The totals were staggering. Replacing the custom cabinetry, repairing the hardwood floors, reinstalling fixtures, undoing the demolition, nearly $90,000. I forwarded the estimates to Gregory with a brief note, is this reasonable? He called instead of replying by email. The numbers are consistent with the damage you documented, he said. Demolition is quick and cheap, restoration is neither, and since your previous work was custom, replacing it will cost custom prices. $90,000, I repeated. That's conservative. If you upgraded to what they were planning, it would be more. I don't want their plans, I said firmly, I want my house back. Understood, I'll include these figures in our demand. On another note, we received a response from your parents' attorney this morning. My stomach tightened. They hired a lawyer? They did. He's arguing implied permission based on that dinner conversation and their contribution to your down payment. That's absurd. I agree, and so would a judge. Property law is clear, but it means they intend to fight. A part of me had hoped the legal notice would shock them into reality. That hope evaporated. What's next? I asked. We file suit. Civil trespass and destruction of property. We seek repair costs, loss of use damages during restoration, and legal fees. With your documentation, it's a straightforward case. How long? 6 months to a year unless they settle. In the meantime, we can request an emergency restraining order preventing further work and barring them from the property. I looked around at the hollow shell of my sanctuary. Do it, I said, all of it. That last part actually helps us, Gregory said. It shows this wasn't about harmless improvements. They were actively trying to transfer your property to your brother without your knowledge or consent. The trial lasted 3 days. My parents' attorney tried to frame me as an ungrateful daughter who had torn apart a loving family over a misunderstanding. He projected photos of Christmas mornings, beach vacations, my college graduation, snapshots of a closeness that no longer existed. He called relatives to describe what a tight-knit family we used to be. But under Gregory's cross-examination, the sentiment unraveled. None of those relatives could explain how family justified demolishing someone's home without permission. None could defend the forged power of attorney or the false claims of ownership made to contractors. I testified on the second day. Gregory guided me methodically through the timeline, purchasing the house, funding the renovations, paying the mortgage, discovering the destruction, confronting my parents. I kept my tone steady, refusing to let emotion derail me. When their attorney suggested I was motivated by jealousy of Jacob, I answered calmly, I'm proud of my brother's accomplishments, but his success does not entitle him to my property. On the third day, Patricia, the contractor, took the stand. She brought consultation notes in which my mother had claimed she and my father owned the property and were renovating it before transferring it to their son. The falsified power of attorney was entered into evidence, followed by expert testimony confirming it had never been properly executed or filed. By closing arguments, the outcome felt inevitable. My parents' attorney leaned heavily on emotion, family bonds, forgiveness, tragedy. Gregory was brief and direct. This is not a case about family conflict, he told the jury. It is about property rights. The defendants did not own this home. They did not have permission to authorize work. They misrepresented their authority. They caused $87,000 in damage. The law is clear. They are liable. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They returned a verdict entirely in my favor. The judge awarded full restoration costs, legal fees, and $75,000 in additional damages. He issued a permanent injunction barring my parents and Jacob from entering the property or asserting any claim to it. He ordered them to sign a formal acknowledgement that they had acted without authorization. I watched my mother cry. My father stared blankly at the table. Jacob whispered furiously to Victoria. Their attorney gathered his papers with quiet efficiency. Gregory leaned toward me. You won completely. But victory wasn't what I felt. I felt exhausted, relieved, hollow. Outside the courthouse, they left through a side door. I stood on the steps with Gregory and Jessica, who had taken the day off to be there. What now? Jessica asked gently. Now I figure out what my life looks like without them, I said. That weekend, I drove back to the lake house. It was mid-October, the trees just beginning to turn. The air carried that crisp promise of change. I walked through each restored room slowly. The cabinets were rebuilt, the floors refinished, the furniture replaced with pieces close enough to what I'd lost. It was mine, legally and unequivocally mine. No one could take it from me again. I cooked pasta with vegetables from the farmer's market and ate on the deck as the sun set over the water. For the first time in months, my shoulders loosened. Jessica texted, "How is it?" "Peaceful," I replied, finally. The next morning, after a run along the lake trail, I found my grandmother's old sedan in the driveway. She sat on my porch with a basket beside her. "I brought blueberry muffins," she said softly, "your favorite." I sat one step below her, cautious. "I came to apologize," she continued. "I believed your mother without asking for your side. I thought family meant accepting whatever we're given. I was wrong." Emotion caught in my throat. "Thank you for saying that. I don't expect everything to be fixed," she said, "but I want you to know I see the truth now, and I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself." We ate muffins in silence, watching the lake. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. "Your mother isn't doing well," Grandma added quietly. The judgment hit them hard. "Jacob is furious. He took out a loan expecting to have this house." "That's unfortunate," I said evenly, "but it's not mine to solve." "No," she agreed, "it isn't." 3 months later, a certified letter arrived. My parents were filing for bankruptcy. The judgment, their legal fees, and the renovation debt had collapsed their finances. Their home was headed toward foreclosure. I called Gregory. "They can file," he said. "Whether this debt is discharged is another matter, because it stemmed from intentional wrongdoing. We can argue it shouldn't be wiped out, but it means more litigation. More court, more strain." "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "I'm so tired of fighting." "You have 60 days to decide." 6 weeks later, my phone rang. "Bella, this is Patricia from Henderson Construction. Your brother contacted us asking for copies of all documents related to your property. He said he's considering suing your parents for promising him a house they didn't have the right to give." I sank into a chair. "Jacob is suing them?" "That's what it sounds like." In November, I stood on my dock and looked at the house I had fought to reclaim. The anger had softened, the hurt was no longer sharp. What remained was clarity. It had never truly been about the house. It was about refusing to shrink, refusing to be convenient, refusing to surrender what was mine to preserve someone else's comfort. Protecting yourself isn't cruelty, enforcing boundaries isn't vindictive. Sometimes the hardest lesson is that love without respect is not love at all. And in choosing not to disappear, I had found something stronger than family approval. I had found myself.